Hey everybody, Garcia here. Welcome back to Board Game Echoes. In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at two games that remind me of each other in some way. I'm going to be giving you a brief look at how they work, each of them. And then after that, I'll tell you which one I prefer and why I prefer that one. So we're taking a look at Mykerinos here and Rome. This is from 2006 from Astari Games, and Rome here came out from Red Raven Games. It's got a 2019 date on it. And so they are both area control games in which you are putting out cubes or tokens, controlling different areas, divvying up those things, and then making victory points by doing that. And you sort of do that a few times in the game. So I'm going to show you how this works briefly, then I'll show you Rome, and then I'll talk about them. In Mykerinos, we're going to be setting up an area kind of like this 4 times in the game, and the players are going to be deploying cubes to it in order to control these different locations, denoting first player, second player, third player, things like that. There's also a museum over here where you're going to be sending out your cubes to the different wings in order to score victory points. These, on the other side, have one of these characters on there, and you're going to be able to keep that, score victory points for it, and also take their special ability, obviously after the first age, because you start with none of them. So the way it works is, like I said, players are going to be playing out cubes. Normally you put out a single cube to start a new expedition. Later on you can extend an expedition by putting out a couple of cubes. And this is going to continue until all of the players pass eventually. And that ends the first stage, and the players are going to split up the different locations out here. So let's say this is what it looks like at the end of the first round here. This is a passing scale. When players pass, they put their token out in the earlier number. And then we divvy them up in order, going through all of these plots of land. So we take a look. Whoever has the most cubes gets a choice. They get to take one of these 2 tiles. So it'll be red here having the first place. Or they get to go to the museum. And to go to the museum, you again claim one of the wings, and you are going to, at the end of the game, score that many victory points based on the different characters you've got. So, for example, if I have a bunch of these, I want to be in this part of the museum to make each one worth 2 or 3 points or 5 points if I'm in here. That's the idea. So red's going to take one of these. They might take that one. Let's say it's got no victory points right now, which some do. Say 2 points, 3 points. And then they flip it and take it. So red will do that. And then the next one would be a yellow or white or tied. So we take a look at the scale. Green past yellow or white. I said green or white. So green is earlier in the passing scale, so they get to go. And let's say green claims a place in the museum here. And then third place, if there's any tiles left, they'll take one of those. So white would take that. And this happens for every one of these. So that's how ties work. Again, if you take one that has any points, you immediately get some victory points. So, red here would take 2 victory points right now, and then they flip this and keep it. For the second stage and the third and the fourth, you then have these characters, and they let you break some rules. Like, this guy here lets you add 3 cubes to an extension of an expedition instead of just 2. She lets you begin a new expedition with 2 cubes instead of just 1. There's even a guy who lets you, is it this one? Yeah, this guy lets you go on the pyramid spaces, which are normally blocked off. So you're collecting these, sending out your cubes to the museum, and at the end of the game, you add up your victory points. So let's say I am red, and I have this character. This is worth the highest place I went to. And right now, if I have a cube on 3 associated with that color, this is worth 3 victory points. You're also going to get points for having complete sets, things like that. So that's the way it works. Rome is going to play somewhat similarly. This is the area in which the players are going to be putting their tokens out, but instead of putting one at a time, you are going to be using these characters to deploy tokens. So for example, let's say yellow player is starting. They can choose this card and put out tokens in that pattern from their point of view. So you might do something like this. 1, 2, 3, like that. And then any coins you covered, you're going to get a coin for that. You're going to be using those to put out more markers or to bring back your characters sooner, because once you've used one, you hide it like so. And then this player will go and they'll use one of theirs, again, from their point of view. So they might do the 3 blue tokens here, might go like that, 1, 2, 3, like so. They'll get a couple of coins also because there's 2 coins printed on there. And then this one is used up. And this is going to continue until one of the places is fully covered up, like that. And then once that happens on one of these cards, we divvy it out. So, and this is a single continuous round, as opposed to in Mykerinos where you take 4 distinct turns or game rounds. In this one, it's sort of one long flowing one. As this happens, you momentarily interrupt this to give this to the player that wins it. The other players on there get I think a coin, just sort of as a little prize. And this player now takes this card. It's going to be 3 victory points. And they flip it over. They have a new ability now, a new way to put out tokens, and another card that's out here. And we replenish this spot immediately. And so this continues. It's sort of a cascading effect as you are going through it. The game's going to be over when someone has 10 characters in front of them, and then you'll add up the victory points on all of those characters that you do have. The 3 starting ones count towards the 10, but they don't have victory points on them. And so it's a very similar concept of controlling areas. You can spill from one to the next with your patterns, but you'll only score whatever's on one card at a time while you are attempting to wrest control away from the other players in these different areas. Some of the locations you'll see listed on the characters here are just an outline. You can pay a couple of coins to actually put that out. So if I choose this character for blue, and I want to put out that pattern, I'll definitely put out one, and I can pay a couple of coins to put out the one that is just an outline, and then I'll flip that, and I'm done with that turn. You'll get your characters back, like I said, when they're all exhausted, or you can pay coins to bring them back earlier, giving up coins based on how many you still have active, paying that, and then bringing everybody back and giving you access to the really cool powers on here a little bit earlier. There's also in this game the ability to spend coins for another thing, and this is sort of an optional ability you can choose to play with, or module. They call this the full game, and this allows you to pay some coins to get a special tile, which is going to have victory points and some special ability on it, allowing you to replace other players' tokens, allowing you to spend cards to bring everybody back a little sooner, to place in grayed out spaces without having to pay, rotate patterns, things like that. And so you'll be able to pay coins for these. This gives your coins another use in the game, and you can, of course, get more victory points that way. So this is nice. It's very easy to implement. Probably throw that in just about every time. So there you go. That's how this one largely works. Just one single cascading round, like I said, until somebody has 10 and the game is over. So let's talk about both of these side by side. So these two games definitely remind me of each other. The idea of area control over these sectional areas, but that spill into each other. Putting out your control tokens in order to then, once that area gets divvied up, control something you're looking for, gain a special ability, a new power. Now, Rome here is much more modern than Mykerinos. This came out, like I said, in 2006, and this just came out 2019. So, in my opinion, I don't think it's aged very well. Mykerinos has. I think the look is definitely one thing that makes it look very dated. It was never great graphic design anyway, and now it looks even worse. The board is extremely busy. There's a pattern of hieroglyphics behind everything, which is even found in the rule book, unfortunately, and which makes the rule book a lot harder to read than it ought to be. I don't know if you can discern that, but behind everything, there is that pattern of hieroglyphics, and it is an eyesore to be certain. I like these special powers over here, whereas in Rome, you don't really have a new special rule unless you're buying these and using these and buying them. These characters just give you a new pattern, which might be very fun, and it does feel a little splashier to be able to put out, 4 or 5 new tokens as opposed to 1 at a time, maybe 2 if you're extending an expedition, maybe 3 if you have the special ability of this character. But this feels a little more interesting. You're looking for patterns out there that you can surprise your opponent with and complete a card before they're ready for it to be completed. The new game Rome definitely looks much better than the original game, so that's a big thumbs up for it. Large, very nice cards, nice linen finish. Everything looks really good. I love these tokens to control the areas. They look good on here. They pop, so that's really well done. And I do like the single continuous flow of a game round, as opposed to in Mykerinos here, where you have 4 distinct areas going through different phases, area control, then claiming the tiles, or going to the museum, then setting it up again, then starting again. Going through those rounds is a little more formulaic than the nice cadence of just going through an ever-evolving landscape in the new game. I like that quite a bit. Now, one thing I really like in Rome, much better than in Mykerinos here, is the way the game scales. Both of these are 2 to 4 players, but the original game here, the 2006 Mykerinos, isn't great at 2 players. It plays great at 4, it's alright at 3, and at 2, then they start throwing adjustments at you. Each player, there's a third neutral color that you can choose to put out to block your opponent from going to specific places. It works, it's okay, but it is definitely an adjustment to the usual gameplay that you are going to get with more players. In Rome, the game feels the same when you're playing at 2 as when you're playing at more players. You are clashing with fewer people, of course, but there is no weird adjustment. The game just works smoothly and just fine when you're playing with 2, 3, 4 players. And then when you throw in this, which there is no sort of, intro mode and then gamer mode in the original game here, when you throw this in, you're going to have a little more going on, a little more interest happening there. The game could be flat if you are never using these, and if they were not included, honestly, I wouldn't be as fond of the game. But I think this is a nice way to learn without them. And then pretty much, second game or maybe even immediately, you're going to want to throw these in. They're going to mix it up. They don't have that many distinct powers. There's 4 or 5, about the same as these characters. And they're going to give you new ways to, new things to worry about and new ways to cater what you are doing in order to get special abilities. So I like those, and I like just the general sort of flow in it a little bit more. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on these 2 games. I can certainly see echoes of the original game in the new one here, but I think Rome is a much better game. It's prettier, more interesting, more engaging ultimately than this game. I could see it being reprinted, Mykerinos. I could see it getting a facelift. But unless the game drastically changed, it would still be a little rote and a little sort of by the numbers when it comes to area control. Originally, what I really liked about it was that it was a game that was extremely clean. It did area control in such a straightforward fashion. The idea of the area you are controlling becoming a character for you was felt very novel at that time. And I think Rome uses the same idea. It's not original to this game, but I like it here a little bit better, and achieving those gets you closer to victory directly, as opposed to over here, you need not just the characters, but the museum control here, which honestly is probably the most boring part of this game, was just putting out the cubes in order to get better scoring. It wasn't a very thrilling part. You needed to do it for points, but it wasn't captivating. So if this is one you never played before, I would say at this point you can definitely skip it. It's probably a little harder to find anyway. And I would recommend you check out Rome if you're looking for a really straightforward area control game with a splash of special abilities, just a little bit in these tokens down here. This is a good one for that. Rome is the one that gets my thumbs up here. I certainly do recommend it. So there you go, everybody. That is Rome and Mykerinos there, the 2 games I'm highlighting here. Thanks for checking this out. I appreciate it. I am Z Garcia, and I'm going to see you on the next one. Bye-bye.